Hey guys, my name is Emily and I am going to do a run-through of The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I've read the book about 3 times and only seen the movie once, but by far the book is the best thing. I choose books over movies any day. This book is a very, very sad book. It's basically just a roller coaster of emotions. It's sad, it's depressing, it's humorous, it's romantic. It's just everything, anything and everything that consists of a good book. And in this book, one of the main characters is Hazel Grace Lancaster. She is the novel's narrator. She's a 16-year-old protagonist who's very smart, and she's astute. She's just remarkably different. And in the book, she just seems more mature. She seems more mature than the average 16-year-old. And I feel like that's something good to add into a book. But in the book, she stays secluded from others. She will keep her distance because when she was 13, she was diagnosed with a terminal form of thyroid cancer that has since then spread to her lungs, which made her lungs very weak and not function like they should. So she's having to carry around a little oxygen tank, and she has to keep the little tube in her nose so she can breathe, because without it she just has the hardest time ever. She keeps her distance because she knows that there's no cure for this terminal form of thyroid cancer. There's no cure for it. So she figures, since there's no cure and I'm getting fluid in my lungs and I'm having a hard time breathing, I'm just going to die. And everyone thought she was going to die because she was just a sick person. And so she would stay away from people so she wouldn't hurt them. She wouldn't get close to people. She would push them away because she was scared of dying and leaving them alone to just hurt. And in the book, her mother makes her go to this, what's it called? This support group, yeah, where she meets Augustus Waters, which she calls Gus. Gus is a 16-year-old who is diagnosed with osteosarcoma, who eventually becomes Hazel's boyfriend. His cancer, because of his cancer, he got his leg taken away. Like, they had to cut off his leg and give him a fake one. So, she's got cancer, he's got cancer. And, he survived cancer. There's no sign of cancer. But her, on the other hand, there's her cancer. And so, in that situation, you would think maybe that she would die first before him, or she would be the one to die because she was so sick. And, and the way that she told him that she didn't want to get close because she didn't want to die and leave him and hurt him. She didn't want that to happen. And, so they meet at support group, and they call it the literal heart of Jesus because it's the literal heart of Jesus, even though it's not the literal heart of Jesus. And there's Isaac. He's also a major character. He had cancer, and he's also in the support group. He's best friends with Augustus Waters, and he has cancer. He's got some sort of cancer, and it has messed with his eyes, so he's lost his eyesight, and he's blind now. They had to take out his eyes. And he got dumped by his girlfriend before he got surgery to remove his eyes. So he was angry at the world because the world took his girlfriend and his eyes, and he was just angry. And who wouldn't be angry? Who wouldn't? So in the book, they all hang out, and actually, the first day that Hazel and Augustus meet, they were standing outside of the support group place, and he pulls out a cigarette, and he's talking to her, and he sticks it between his teeth, and she just totally flips out. She's like, you were diagnosed with cancer, and you just got rid of it, and you're smoking, and I have crappy lungs, and you're doing that, and right in front of me. You don't know what it's like to have terrible lungs like this. You don't know what it's like to not breathe. And he was like, okay, calm down. It's just a metaphor. I'm not really smoking. I stick it there, and I don't give it the power to kill me. And so they immediately click. And so he takes her to his house that day, and they switch names of books. Actually, he gives her a book, and she gives him a name of a book that she is obsessed with and read over 1,000,000 times. It's called An Imperial Affliction. After they read it, after he reads it and she reads the book that he gave her, they give their thoughts on the books. And then he totally flips out because he's like, oh my gosh, at the end of the book, it just stops mid-sentence and it doesn't even finish. Like, you don't even know what happens to the hamster, or what happens to her mom, or what happens to her, or just what happens. And so they're like freaking out, and he's freaking out. She is already mad and has written Peter Van Houten, the author of An Imperial Affliction. She has written him many letters asking what happens at the end of the book because it never finishes. And so throughout the book, close to the end of the book, I would say, or in the middle of the book, she was taught. They were at this museum, or outside. It's a museum of, I don't really know what it was, but they were outside, and it was a little park, and there's like the big white bones, like it's a 3D skeleton out of the ground, and there's children playing all over it. And so they go there, and he's like, what did you do with your cancer wish? And she was like, well, and he's like, you didn't go to Disney World, did you? And she's like, yeah, I did. And he's like, oh my gosh. So you know what he did? He uses his only wish to go to Amsterdam to meet Peter Van Houten, because his assistant and Peter Van Houten had emailed both Hazel and Augustus, and they were like, y'all should come down here, maybe we could set up some stuff, or like explaining that the book was over, and they were like, maybe we could fill in some questions that you have, or answer the questions. And so he told Hazel, he was like, well, we're going to Amsterdam, okay? And she like totally flips out because Peter Van Houten had basically invited them to Amsterdam. And after they get to Amsterdam, it's just not even what they expected. And before they went, Hazel had fluid filling up in her lungs, so she had to get rushed to the hospital. And Gus couldn't see her, and because it was family only. So, and she didn't want him to see her like that, so she didn't let him come in. And that was before they went to Amsterdam. They were like, we're going to see if she's okay to go to Amsterdam. And then they gave her confirmation, but she has to have an adult with her that knows about her condition. And so they went to Amsterdam, and they had the loveliest, the most the best detailed dinner and walks, and it's just, the whole Amsterdam scene is just amazing. And they go to Peter Van Houten's home, and he totally was flipping out on them. He was like, I didn't email y'all, that was my assistant. And then his assistant was like, you know what, you owe it to these kids to tell them. So he goes on and on about what, like, he's like, it doesn't matter. And he's just drunk, and he's not even the person that they thought he was. So Peter Van Houten told Hazel that she was just a person that was going to eventually die. And so it flipped. She just flipped. And she yelled at him, and she stormed out. Augustus followed, and Van Houten's assistant quit her job. Later in the Amsterdam scene, we end up finding out that Augustus had went to the hospital because he had some pain. He went to the hospital whenever she was in the hospital. He was feeling pain, and he told her that the doctor said that his cancer was returning. And so, like, they're in love, you know, and he was cancer-free. Like, there was no sign of cancer, and she had cancer, and you would think she would be the one to die because she was so sick, and he wasn't. Because all he had was a lost leg, and that was it. So, towards the end of the book, Augustus gets way more sick than anything. He just gets sicker and sicker. And so he makes, he doesn't really make, he asks Isaac and Hazel to write him a eulogy for his funeral and read it to him at the literal heart of Jesus at the support group. And so they did, and he died days afterwards, and she was just so depressed afterwards. It was impossible. Like, I don't even understand. But, this book, I think people should read this book because it is just, it's so sad, and to be able to understand what it's like to have to go through a loss when you have cancer and they have cancer, it's terrible. I mean, he wasn't even supposed to die. And the theme is to, I don't know, to just not take things a certain way and to interpret it in different ways, see it from other people's perspectives, and to not assume your life because it may not always turn out what it's supposed to be. Thank you guys for watching. Yeah, thank you.